In this small video, let us try to understand the importance of TypeScript. If you go to the TypeScript site, if you go to typescriptlang.org, if you see, it says that TypeScript is a typed superset of JavaScript, but finally it compiles to JavaScript. So in other words, TypeScript is a language, where you go and write in the TypeScript language, but when you hit compile, it will compile to a JavaScript. So the first question which comes to our mind is that why do we need to have one more language over JavaScript? Isn't JavaScript good? People are coding in JavaScript, they are using jQuery, there are frameworks like Angular and so on. So why do I need to now go and learn one more language called as TypeScript and compile it to JavaScript? Now, if you see programmers, who come from C# background, from Java background, from C++ background, these programmers have a very heavy belief in object-oriented programming. So they believe that yes, to have a proper project, you need to create classes, you need to create objects, you need to do inheritance, you need to implement polymorphism, you need to have interfaces, the language should be strongly typed and so on. So there are certain beliefs of people who code in C# and Java, and when they come to JavaScript, suddenly they find that they are in an unknown island. For example, in JavaScript, if you want to create a class, you have to create a function. If you want to do inheritance, you have to use something called as prototype. So what happens is, these people or these developers are trained in a certain way, their thoughts are in a certain way, and suddenly when they come to JavaScript, they have to learn something very new, right? And that's where exactly TypeScript comes into picture. TypeScript says that, okay, go ahead, use your classes, use your functions, use the syntax of inheritance, use interfaces, use polymorphism, and I will compile it to the appropriate JavaScript code. You don't have to know what JavaScript code is need to do inheritance, what kind of JavaScript code you need to create a property, and so on. So for example, here you can see that I have a very simple solution which is created in 2015. So what I can do is I can go and add, so let us say I can go and add a TypeScript file here. So in 2015 we have a very awesome support for TypeScript. So I can go and say here, okay, here it is, customer. So there you can see that he has added a file called as customer.ts. So normally TypeScript files are stored with the extension TS, right? So now I can go and start writing, in my favorite style. I can go and say here class, and I want to create a customer, and I will just go and save this. Now once I save this, what TypeScript does, it actually goes and creates an equivalent JS file of it. So if I go and say show all files, you can see that we have this customer.ts, and you can also see that there is something called as customer.js. So if you go and see customer.js, it has compiled to an equivalent customer.js, and you can see that he has actually created a closure here. So a closure is nothing but the way to create proper components in JavaScript. So you can see all that things he has done for us. For example, now let us say I want to create a property here. So I can say, okay, I want to create a private, or I'll say public property. Let us say public variable, public customer code string, right? And I can say here constructor, and I can say that let us initialize the customer code this dot customer code to, let us say, C001. So you can see it also has a constructor. So the time I do this, and if I go to my JS file, you can see that he has created a property and he has done the initialization for me, right? In the same way, I can go and say, okay, let us create a class here called as gold customer, and I'll say gold customer extends customer, so inheritance, and then I can go and save this. And then when I go to customer.js, I can see that there are all the necessary code generated, to do the inheritance. So basically, the most important thing about TypeScript is that it makes you feel home. It says that, okay, go ahead, use your old syntaxes of extend, interfaces, the public setter getters, the properties, do polymorphism, and I will go and compile to the equivalent JavaScript component, right? And then what I can do is I can go ahead in my UI, I can just drag and drop this customer.js, and I can start using the object. So I can say here, okay, I want to create a customer object. So I can go and create an object of customer. I can go and set the property, right? And I can also view the property. So you can see now how easily my components are created and how easily I'm able to implement object-oriented programming in JavaScript. So remember, TypeScript is a superset language. It has its own syntaxes, and that syntaxes matches with object-oriented programming languages like C# and Java. So with that, what happens is, you don't have to really learn JavaScript to an extent, where you have to know the weird JavaScript syntaxes to do inheritance and so on. So there my application is running, and you can see that I'm able to invoke my object and also see my property. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. So in short, if you are creating an enterprise project, I don't see why you won't use TypeScript, because to implement all those object-oriented programming principles like inheritance, polymorphism, aggregation, composition, association, learning all that cryptic syntaxes of JavaScript will be extremely difficult. So I think TypeScript should be how do you say, in your project, TypeScript should be a kind of a compulsion thing, so that you can make your project better. Thank you very much.